right, so it is rainy outside today. It's cold. It is not. It's Northeast Florida. Of course, it's not rainy and cold outside. It is beautiful, and we're here today with Mr. Adam Birch. Adam is here because he's going to tell us about his alligator hunting camp. This is the Northeast Florida Marine Innovators Alliance podcast, where we talk about all things marine, all things around the marine space, whether it's fishing, whether it's hunting alligators, or whether it's just going out and having a good time with your boat. That's what we're going to talk about. That's what we do on this case. So welcome, Adam. And innovation takes many forms, right? Innovation takes many forms. We think about innovation typically with technology and so on and so forth. But Matt and I had an opportunity yesterday to walk around Adam's property, and we realized that innovation is really just creativity and doing things different than anybody else. That's really what it comes down to. Today we have Adam Birch with us. Adam, what do they call you, Adam? Mr. Gator?
No, I don't know that I have a nickname.
No,
so.
No nickname? No
when I was in the Navy, like everyone called me the Gator or Bull Gator and stuff, and then that's kind of how that whole
Bull Gator?
evolved. And I was on a state alligator hunt a long time ago, and back then we used to shoot them with harpoons. Or what we used to do is we used a spear gun out of the front of the boat, and so anyway, we're running up on this gator about 30 miles an hour, and I venture too far out on the edge of the airboat, and there's a piece of aluminum welded there for a trolling motor. I step on it, I get flipped out of this airboat, like going 30 miles an hour. And we had some Bud Lights that night. So I hit the water, I curl up, airboat's leaving me. They turn around, come back and pick me up. And they go to roll me back into the thing. And they're like, oh, this is a really fat bull gator we got here. So anyway, it kind of grew out of that. And then told some of my Navy buddies. And then that kind of became my nickname. And that's kind of what became Bull Gator Bayou eventually, was that story.
The Bull Gator, Adam Birch, the Bull Gator. I love it. So Adam, tell us what you're doing over there. Matt, like I said, Matt and I got a chance to go over and see your property and roam your property. Great tour. As timid as I was, right? Once I got in there, I got more comfortable. I was like, wow, this place is amazing. Tell us what you're doing.
Well, thank you. So I've been a charter boat captain here for about 10 years. Most of my adult life I've been guiding in one way or the other. So about 16 years ago, I was fortunate enough to become one of FWC's contracted nuisance alligator trappers. And that's a job that a lot of people in the public don't know, but you actually get paid in alligators. So they give us a little bit of stipend money, like used to be $30, now it's $50, but they let you keep the alligator. And they kind of like turn you loose, like, okay, go make a living at this or go try to make some money at it. So as soon as I got the job 15, 16 years ago, I started doing ride-alongs, and I would take people with me. It's kind of like a charter. They would come along with me for the day, spend the day with me, be out on the golf courses catching alligators. But I always wanted a hunting preserve, and like as a charter boat, I got 250-something competitors here in St. Augustine. But these alligator hunting preserves, there's only like 10 or 11 of them in the entire state of Florida. That's always been in the back of my mind. I was always looking for property. You have to have a minimum of like almost 3 acres to build a farm. But I was wanting to like do a hunting preserve so that especially people from outside the gator belt could come in and like have a real deal alligator hunt. Have it very realistic, very rustic. But it only takes 3 or 4 hours, like more or less the same length of a half-day charter. Anyway, I bought 20 acres here on Holmes Boulevard. It has 7 acres of ponds on it. Those ponds, they kind of they started digging them about 40 years ago. We think they came in there with a drag line and they were trying to mine coquina. And then, so that didn't work out because they were a little bit off of the coquina vein. And then someone came in there later and took the original pond and kind of started digging around, and he dug this set of ponds. You saw yesterday. It's very rustic. It's got about 5 or 6 little islands on it. It's got these little coves on it and stuff. And then somewhere along the way, the person, it got sold to an investor, and then the investor just sat on it for like 25 or 30 years. And then eventually, I was always stalking that property. I was always looking at it on Onyx and stuff and wanting it. And it came on the market 3 years ago when I bought it. So what I did was went through DEP, got the permitting in place. put a fence around the pond complex, and then so now I'm taking my nuisance alligators, putting them into this farm, and so and then it's a full on, very rustic alligator hunting reserve. We have 5 shooting platforms out there. We have about a dozen footbridges, as you saw, and we do alligator hunts 365 days a year. I supply the license, I supply the tag, so you can.
Yeah, no, so that it was awesome. I've got to tell you, so I got there, right? And you were already back in the woods, and Matt was there already. And Matt's phone had died. Matt said, "Call me when you get there," right? Because I came in behind you guys. And all the signs are up there, right? No trespassing, danger, danger, danger. And the further I walk back in, I'm like, it feels like Jurassic Park,
Yeah,
right? The
yeah.
whole environment changes. It literally, everything's green. It feels like, what am I walking into right now? So I started walking down that little wooden platform, and a big bullfrog jumped in and chirped as it jumped and
Yeah,
skimmed
yeah,
across the water. And then something huge splashed
yeah.
behind it. And I stopped immediately and turned around and went, I don't know that I should be here.
All right.
Right. And that's when I called you, got your number, called you and said, all right, should I be walking back
All
here? Or should
right.
I not be walking back here? But once you get back there, I mean, it is unbelievably
Yeah.
beautiful. It is an environment that is so unlike other things, right? It's this it's this lake environment that's completely natural, right? You see all of these gators; they're easy to see. I mean, it's really
Right.
incredible, and of course, it's fenced in, of course. So you've got a really nice fence piece around that. But ultimately, it is nature, right? It
Right.
is absolutely nature. And what you've done with the platforms and the shooting platforms I mean, it's just incredible. Well done,
Oh, thank you.
well
Thank
done.
you.
Yeah,
So,
really, really, really great. So if somebody wanted to go on a hunt, what do they need to do?
they just need to call me. I have a website, and we have a Facebook page. I post on the Facebook page almost daily. If I don't have hunts, I'm posting pictures of turkeys or deer or something going on out there and stuff. But call me, book a hunt. I'm the owner. I'm the only guide out there and stuff. So, and then we do it, like I said, 365 days a year. People, sometimes I've had them book a year in advance. I've had a guy, biker, call me from Daytona and say, "Hey, I'm down here and I'm at a bar with my buddies and I'm bored. I want to go on a gator hunt." And I'm like, "Sure." And he goes, I said, "When do you want to go?" Thinking it's like next week. And he's like, "Now." I'm like, "All right." So 45 minutes later, he's on a
Nice.
boat, and we're out there alligator hunting. And
Sweet.
3 hours later, he's got a 9-foot gator, under his belt.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So obviously you brought some things here, and just guys, just so you know, Adam pulls up this morning in his pickup truck, and he's got a cooler in the back, and he caught a gator last night, flipped open the cooler and showed us this gator this morning as he pulls up there, and it's just nonchalant. It's just what he does every
Yeah,
day,
right.
right? We're like, wow. We're all like, can we touch it? Wow, it's incredible. And he's like, yeah, of course. This is what I do. This is what I do. So very cool. And tell us about this. I mean, obviously you're bringing a skull. There's got to be a story behind it.
Sure, sure. So if you come out there and do a hunt, one of the things I do recommend is like doing a European mount. I think that's the best way to do to really showcase your trophy. But so this gator, he was 11 feet long. And so my wife, she and I dated 35 years ago. We were over at the University of West Florida. She's my college girlfriend. Almost got married, didn't. It was back in 1992, like a million years ago, right? And at the time, I was in the Navy, finished college. I'd come back from the Gulf War. The Navy sent me to college for a couple of years, and then when I was done with college, they were sending me to Cairo, Egypt, to a research lab that the Navy has there. So anyway, didn't marry her back then. Years go by. We both have our own families and stuff. And around the time of COVID, I found out she'd been divorced, and she actually lived here now, and I live here now. So anyway, we got back together. So we started dating. We realized, hey, I think we want to get married. So we're like, well, we're older. We're just kind of instead of having an engagement ring and doing the surprise and all that stuff, we're just going to shop for engagement rings. So this gator lived over on the river for about 3 years. He had been giving myself and 2 or 3 other trappers the slip. He's like real smart. We set a bait for him, which we sometimes do. He would actually get the bait and he would pull the line real slowly till he got to the end of it, and then he would tug it off, pull the bait, and get it off the hook without getting hooked. And this would happen like every day. It was almost like a joke. And the place I was setting the bait was between these two docks. But every time that, so one of the other ways we can harvest a gator as a trapper is we can shoot him. I was like, okay, forget this. And this gator was actually coming up. The lady that called him in, they had a dock and they had some grandkids. The grandkids were swimming, and this gator was patrolling that.
Oh,
There's
wow.
probably a 5 or 6 mile basin in that Coley Cove part of the St. Johns River. This thing was coming up and hanging around this dock where her grandkids swam, so she was understandably nervous. So I was like, okay, this gator's we got to get him out of here. So I was like, I'm just going to shoot him. And that, so it seemed like every time my wife and I were about to go to the jewelry store to kind of look at rings or whatever, these people would call and say, the gator's out here right now. And I'd go over there and I shot at him 2 or 3 times. And, I'm trying to shoot him with a deer rifle, and it's not really set up to shoot a golf ball size target at 85 yards. So, I thought I killed him 2 or 3 times, shot at him, drug the bottom. It never happened. So I was like, okay, next time I get a chance to shoot this gator, I'm gonna shoot him long ways. I'm gonna shoot him head on or from the back. And so like almost every day, almost like clockwork, go over there, check the bait. He's got the bait. I reset the bait, and go over there one morning about 7:30 in the morning, walking down one of the docks, and there's the gator. Like, he just got the bait, and he's swimming. He's just real slowly swimming past the end of the dock. So I run back to my truck, get my rifle. I'm shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor to try to kill him, and I start walking back down the dock. And this dock's like 300 yards long, and so I'm walking down the dock, and the gator's just kind of like looking at me, and then all of a sudden he goes under. And as soon as he goes under, I take off, run up there. There's a little boathouse on the end of the dock. Get up inside of the boathouse. Sure enough, he pops up. So now I'm up in my little sniper hide. He's out there in the river. He's right near these poles that shrimpers used to use. So I know he's exactly he's just inside of those. So those things are about 100 yards from me. Like, I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to wait for the perfect shot. So I'm watching him. He's watching me. It just goes on for like 5 minutes, And if you've ever hunted, like the longer you look at an animal, the more nervous you get.
Oh, yeah.
And so finally he starts turning, and he turns straight toward me. When he did, the target got smaller. And I'm like, crap, that didn't work, So by the time he starts turning away from me, and he's going to swim away, and I'm like, and about the time, these gators, they can puff themselves up in the water. So he puffs up, his whole back comes out of the water, and put the crosshairs on the literally right on the water line, knowing that the bullet was going to rise a little bit because of the way the rifle set up, and it clipped him in the back of the head. So I'm still on the rifle. His tail's in the air, his feet in the air. He's flipping around. And the first thing I did, it's drop the rifle, took a picture of him, and I sent a text to my wife and said, I just killed the bane of your existence. Now we can go look for engagement rings, So now I got this gator floating. So I run back to my truck, throw the rifle in there, grab my rod and reel, and I take off, and I start running down this dock, and I realize, man, they built this dock really high. It's like 9-10 feet tall. So throw my rod and reel down in the bushes, and I notice there's a tree next to us. I grab onto the tree, shimmy down the tree, and now I'm running down the side of the river, and the gator's about 100 yards out, and he's about 100 yards down the river. And so as I start making my way out into the river, it's ankle deep at first, then it's knee deep. I look down the way, and there's these two guys on a bass boat. So I start yelling for them, and I see them pull up their anchor, and they start heading toward me. And so I'm like, well, crap, I want to get, this gator might sink. So I'm moving toward him, and as soon as I get within casting distance of him, I throw over, I hook him, and I'm still making my way. So now, the gear we use to catch these gators is a 150-pound braid, but we're always trying to put pressure on them because their hide is such that you rarely, probably 30% of the time the barb gets inside of the hide, but a lot of times you're just hanging on to it.
Yeah, just catching it.
Like their hide is super dense, and so I'm like, so I'm putting maximum pressure. So the distance between the gator and I is closing very quickly, and the boat's making its way to us. And about the time they get up there and they get to me, the gator, basically his hind legs is the only thing I can see. So his tail's down in the water. The business end of him's down in the water. And so these guys pull up in the boat. I give the one guy the rod reel. I'm like, pull up on this as hard as you can. So I have to grab this gator by his back legs and basically feel down his body and try to make my way up toward his head so I can get his head out of the water so I can get him taped. And I'm sure everybody watches Swamp People, and Troy Landry's famous saying is never trust an alligator.
Never trust an alligator, sure. Sure.
So get him up, get him taped, and eventually say, hey, you guys mind giving me a free ride home? So we tie the gator to the side of the boat, drag him back down to the people's house that had called in about him. And I called them, and I'm like, hey, I killed the gator. So by chance, do you have a lawnmower? So with these really big gators, you're sitting there pulling them across a yard or something. It takes.
What's he weigh? What does this weigh?
He probably weighed 350, something like that. So So yeah, we get it. So these guys on the boat and the homeowner, and myself, we get him out of the water, and then we drag him up there and then hook him to a lawnmower. They're really easy to slide, especially across wet grass. You know, their bellies are real slick. So drug him up, and then had to the cooler you saw this morning is the Yeti 420, so it'll hold a 10-foot gator. And my saying is, if he's above 10 feet, we use the cooler. We take the cooler out of the truck and we kind of turn it sideways, and we use it to bunny hop these really big gators, and then slide them into the back of the truck. So,
Got it. Got it. Yeah, you've probably got it down at this point. How many gators do you think you've caught?
I think close to 3,000. Yeah, so
Wow.
we're doing it 16
Wow.
years, and yeah, between that and the state hunt, and then messing around out on the farm. So
So you said you went to West Florida.
I did.
So I'm realizing now you went there the same time that my wife went there.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
and she played basketball for West Florida.
oh nice.
Yeah. So
Go Argonauts.
yeah, exactly. You guys probably know some of the same people. But that's pretty cool. You always find connections like that, right? It's kind of cool. But it sounds like this guy met the Bull Gator, right? And
Himself, right?
he met the Bull Gator himself, and you took him down, which is awesome. 3,000 gators. First of all, how did you start doing this?
I've always had a passion for guiding. You know, I grew up in the Panhandle, so in the Panhandle we did not have a lot of alligators, and back before 1982, the state of Florida really never had a formal nuisance alligator program. So my dad was kind of like the guy on our town that people call it if there's an alligator they wanted removed from their pond or whatever. So anyway, kind of messed around with him a little bit with my dad growing up, and he was this tremendous outdoorsman, big into hunting, big into fishing. Did a lot of spot and stalk deer hunting and stuff like that. Um, so anyway, I joined the Navy back in 1986, and pretty much the entire time in the Navy, I was always like guiding things. I have a passion for like guiding, a passion for coaching, because I like taking people into an environment where they really do not feel safe, and kind of like, and then a few hours later they leave like, man, I kind of feel confident in that,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's especially true with like fishing, like go out there and like people know nothing about king fishing, and then like I'm like, okay, like, and 4 hours later, like, oh wow, I understand how it's done, or I understand
Right,
how to
right,
catch a
right.
shark, or how to handle a shark, and same deal with a gator, take people. I mean, the difference is this thing, like a shark, will bite you, and it's trying to bite you, so it's a little different. But yeah, the whole time I was in the Navy, when I was over in Egypt, I was a dive master and used to um, plan and lead my own like 7 and 8 day liveaboard expeditions from Sharm el Sheikh down to Hurghada on these liveaboards and stuff, and did a bunch of diving, and then left there, went to Key West, got really big into spearfishing and free diving, and then started teaching a lot of people how to free dive and spearfish, and left there, went to Guam, and got really big into catching marlin,
Wow, man, you've done
and
some cool
yeah.
things.
So then, and then when I came back from Guam, I was actually bored, and my brother and I got into doing the state alligator hunt, and we just instantly fell in love with it, and within a year or two, we started catching big gators and stuff, and then so that's probably 2001, 2002, and then by 2009, I'm sitting down in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, about to retire, and I was like the unofficial base fishing guide down there. I was always taking, my skipper would call me up and say, "Hey, LT, can you take this VIP or this general, this so and so out fishing this afternoon?" So yeah, so my plan when I left the Navy was not to work again, and just to be a guide. And the last 10 years I was in the Navy, I was actually a healthcare administrator that specialized in healthcare construction, and so I was doing like when someone else builds a building, we actually are like behind the scenes specking out all the furniture and equipment and all those things, and then eventually we outfit the clinics, and then we rewrite the standard operating procedures for all the people, and then we do day in the life exercises, and we transition the staff into their new facility. So while I was on active duty, I actually built the Mayport Clinic,
Oh wow.
and then I've even after the Navy, so when I was in the Navy back in Cuba, I was like, okay, I'm going to build this high end alligator hunting, like trophy alligator hunting guide service. So the state alligator hunt happens from August 15th to like October 30th, about 75 days. It's a big deal. It's a lottery system. So I was going to guide during those 75 days, and try to make a little clip of money, and then kind of be a charter boat captain or do something the rest of the year. So I got all that set up, had a website built, had already, was launching the thing, and then I retired, and uh, basically the St. Johns County nuisance alligator contract became available, and I worked for another trapper down in down in Ocala for about 2 or 3 months, and then kind of FWC got to know me, and then when this contract became available, um, actually they gave it to a guy. They interviewed like 100 some people applied. About 5 of us got interviewed. They gave the contract to this guy from New Jersey, right? And about so I've been working as an agent. So there's a trapper, and then the people that work for the trapper are called agents.
Okay.
So I was an agent for this other trapper, and so this guy gets he lives over in Volano Beach, and so I called the guy up and said, "Hey man, I heard you got the trapper job. I'd like to be your agent. I'm already working as an agent for this other guy. Blah blah blah." I go out and start trying to catch alligators for him and stuff. And about 2 weeks later, FWC calls me and says, "Hey, would you mind covering until we hire another trapper?" That guy quit. And this guy literally never caught an alligator in his life. He was a tuna fisherman from Massachusetts. FWC calls me and says, "Hey, would you mind covering until we hire another trapper?" And I was like, "Why didn't you hire me?" And I lived in Clay, like right in the edge of Clay County at the time. And he was like, I said, "Is it because I don't live in St. Johns County?" He said, "Yep." I said, I'll move to St. Augustine next week."
Oh, that's how you got here.
So yeah, so I got into it, and then back then, like 2009, 2010, of course, the economy was in the drink. People were not buying luxury goods. So alligator hide prices were in the toilet. So anyway, got the job, and then waited about 18 or 19 months before I got my first hide sale. Back then, we actually did harvest the alligators. I took them to a processor over in Orangedale. The deal was we killed them. He took the meat, he skinned them, he took the meat, sold to the restaurants. He was a certified facility. And then he stored the hides for us. They're salted and wrapped up in like this brine bleach water and held in these barrels for months or years on end. And then they're actually taken to Christmas, Florida. Back then I was a part of a big co-op of probably 20 other trappers. So we actually had a guy that would travel the world, and he would go to the Philippines or Italy or whatever, and he would make deals with these big commercial tanneries and stuff. And they would, we'd have what they call a hide sale. So like they would, they tell you there's gonna be a hide sale next Tuesday. Get all your hides together. So all these trappers from all over the state would bring in like hundreds of hides, and this broker would sell like maybe 2,000 hides to one of these tanneries. So that was kind of the way it all started, and probably got two of those good hide sales when the hides were like $35 a foot, and then they pretty quickly went to $5 a foot.
Oh,
and you
wow.
couldn't give them away. So when you couldn't give them away, I started horse trading them to some of the tanneries. I give them like 100 or 200 alligator hides. I may get like 50 back in finished product or something like that. So, but my passion has always been guiding, and I was always looking for, I like doing the ride-alongs. I met a lot of interesting people doing it, but I always wanted um, a a hunting preserve, And then about 3 or 4 years ago, my processor, I think he'd been in the business for about 35 years, and he started getting into doing cattle and some other stuff, and he was just ready to get out of it. So he shut his facility down,
Okay.
Abruptly, and said, "Come get your 200 hides like within a month." So we had to scramble, and the hides weren't selling at the time, so I ended up horse trading them to two of the tanneries, and I'm actually still getting hides back from that deal. But anyway, so then I started selling them to some of the hunting preserves down in the southern part of the state, and then like Central Florida Trophy Hunts is like they're the next hunting preserve from this area, about 130 miles away. Started selling to them and some of the other hunting preserves, and the whole time I'm looking to build my own place, and just could never find the right property, and then that property here on Holmes Boulevard became available.
It's a cool property for sure. Cool property, and a really nice spot to be in with St. Augustine,
Yeah.
and the people that come into town here for vacation and other things. I mean, I think it's a great spot for you to be in. So we talked a lot about numbers. Talked about you've lots of hides, lots of alligators you're catching. It's crazy the amount of alligators you've caught in your lifetime. That's nuts. How many alligators are there in Florida?
So they think there's probably between 1.5 and 2 million
Wow.
alligators in the state of Florida.
Wow.
So there's if you want to, I bump into the urban legends a lot, and I'm me, we've known each other for a little while now. Pretty laid back, pretty easygoing guy. So I'm always a little amused by all the urban legends and what people believe. But the American alligator, they were hammered pretty hard for about 100 years by trappers and stuff. Their hide was worth a lot of money. And so they did kind of, there was a lot of poaching, especially in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and stuff like that. So eventually they did. Um, um, so when an alligator gets killed, they get this tag put in his tail. It's called a CITES tag, and that stands for the Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species. So that those tags and that CITES, it's actually a treaty between the United States and like 200 other countries. And what they have agreed to do is like, okay, if any of these animals or plants that we deem as endangered or used for commercial uses or bought and sold, they have to be tracked through this convention. And for the alligators, he's tracked through having a tag put in his tail.
Wow.
So this hide, if you take the hide off of an alligator, he ends up in Italy somewhere. They can look at that.
I can look at that tag
tag
and
number and say Adam Burch caught that gator on the 5th of March in Ponte Vedra, Florida, in Sawgrass,
wow.
TBC or whatever.
How many people are doing things like you're doing?
So the trappers, there's about 120 of them now. There used to be about 50 or 60. So it used to be, I was the last trapper to get a whole county to myself. And now they like Duval County, they actually hired a new set of trappers 2 or 3 years after me. So they're actually, their county's like split between like 3 or 4 trappers.
Got it.
And then, so they call them rotation trappers. What they did, I think the state, because there's always been a big, there's always been some friction between the trappers. It's like you got the coolest job in the world, but it doesn't pay anything,
Right.
So
right.
and then so what do? If you complain too much, they may not let you do the job anymore. In the state of Florida, they're a bureaucracy and they've got budgets and stuff. So
Sure.
they can't really find a wedge to increase the stipend money or change the pay scale. And they know the American alligator, the hide markets kind of went in the drink a long time ago, and it's probably not coming back. That part. The demand for luxury goods has went down some, and then the smaller hides, like the 6-footers and below, they've actually been replaced by the farms. So a wild alligator skin that you would maybe make a Gucci purse out of, you need like a 6-foot or 7-foot, 6.5-foot gator. That if you take a hatchling, you take an egg, you put him in an incubator, he comes out, he's 9 inches long. So if these farmers, they can actually take that gator, put him in 91-degree water, and within like 2 years, they can get him to 6 feet long. So an alligator's a kind of a weird animal that you can trick his metabolism. If you took a 9-inch brand new alligator and you put him in an aquarium in this room and it's always 72 degrees, 12 years from now he may only be like 3 feet long. So you can trick their metabolism one way or the other. But those farm raised gators are really taken, especially the purses and wallets and all that stuff, they've taken the wild alligator hide completely off the market because my wild alligator skin, back when I was selling them, maybe that 6-footer is worth like, maybe $75. And it took that animal about 7 or 8 years to get there because they grow about a foot a year the first 3 or 4 years, and then it starts slowing down from there, and then gradually. So like this animal is probably 30 years old. He's 11 feet long. I caught a 12.8. He was probably 50 or 60 years old.
Is that the biggest one you caught?
The biggest one I've caught.
12.8.
Yeah.
That's a big gator. Big gator.
It is. He's a big boy.
Where'd you catch it at?
Julington Creek in the middle of the day.
Julington Creek?
Yeah. With people skiing and everything.
No kidding.
Yeah. So,
wow. So did somebody call you on it, or was
they called and I got a permit and then called the guy and he's like, I'm looking at the gator right now. He's as big around as a trash can and I said, keep your eye on him. Of course, that never happens, So it's 35 minutes away and I called a buddy of mine who was one of my agents in the area and I was like, hey man, you go up there, like see the gator, just throw a jug bait on him. So a jug bait is like a jug with a string and a hook with some beeflung on it.
Sure.
Beeflung floats. So they're very effective, like in catching alligators. I was like, you see him, put a jug bait on him and leave him alone. And anyway, he went up there and by the time I got there, I was like, hey, did you see him? He's like, no, man. And so we kind of walked around to a couple properties and he was up on an island and all I could see is his tail hanging out the island. It's like this massive tail. So I actually waded across the canal. So the gator, as long as I've got a rod and reel and a hook in him or 2 hooks or 3 hooks, it's definitely the gator's game, So he can slip hooks pretty easy. Once you get a harpoon in him, then the trapper's pretty much got him. So I waded across the canal to harpoon him, and when I get close to him, I can't see him. He can't see me. My buddy, my daughter, his sons are all watching the whole thing, and there's a log there. So I stand up on the log, thinking, well, I stand up, I can see him, I can just throw him. hit him with a harpoon. I've got a harpoon on him. And when I stood up on the log, I see him. The log gives way. I drop back in the water, land on my feet. He comes in the water with me. It's just like scoots, like the chip shot. There's like 2.5, 3 feet of scoots right in front of me. I throw and just boogered up the shot, missed him. He takes off. I run back across the canal, jump up there, grab my jug bait, grab my rod and reel, grab my harpoon, go running. I run out of that yard, jump a fence, and I was like, okay, he'll pop up like three or four houses down. So run down and then darted into this yard. They have a long dock. I'm running down the dock, and this big old gator pops up next to me. And as soon as he did, as soon as he pops up, I literally just hit the deck, pitch him the jug bait, and he swims up to the beef lung, puts his nose on it, and then he just swims away. And it goes underwater and swims away. I'm like, shit. So I stand up. He pops up barely inside of casting range. Throw a snatch hook on him, snatch him, and start fighting him. Well, you got to put maximum pressure on him. So pretty soon he runs a little bit, and then he starts coming back. And so now I'm on a dock by myself. My buddy Patrick hasn't caught up with me,
and you've got a 12.
I've got a 12-foot alligator. My dream alligator, right? So, and I never killed one myself personally. Like I've been guiding people that had killed 12s, and it's always some guy from like Kansas who'd never hunted before, who completely didn't understand what he caught.
Right.
And so I never really caught one for myself personally. So now he's coming toward the dock, and I'm putting maximum pressure on him. And then he's got to the dock. I'm like, crap. Well, if he goes underneath this dock, there's barnacles, nails, all this other stuff. That 150 braid touches any of that, it's game over.
Yeah. And
so I'm trying to stop him. I've got the drag cranked all the way down both my thumbs on the spool of the spinning reel and stuff. And about the time Patrick's like trying to get up on the dock, he come in some other way, and he's got his harpoon with him. I'm like, dude, forget that. Come over here. And he gets over there, and I just crank the rod down as hard as I can. I give it to him. I was like, pull up on this thing as hard as you can. And I get on my belly. The dock's 4 feet off the water. And I get my harpoon down there, and he's pulling up as hard as he can. I said, try to break that rod. And he's like pulling up. And in a minute, I see all the scoots, which is the bumps on the back. See the scoots come up. I lit him up, hit him with a harpoon. He blows up. Water comes, up through the bottom of the dock, And then, so now we have a harpoon in him. He takes off. He starts swimming back out into Julington Creek. It's like, all right, he breaks the line, of course. As soon as that happens, he takes off, runs down through the dock, pops the line. So Patrick had a buddy who's a back doctor here in town, and his daughter was home from Florida State with a bunch of her friends. They're on this brand new ski boat of his in Julington Creek. He's like, hey, man, we're over here trying to catch this gator. Bring your boat over. So this doctor shows up with all these co-eds. These two old smelly alligator hunters jump on there and run over. We snag the gator again, pull him up again. When we harpoon him again, he turns and bites this guy's boat, like right in the corner, and like latches on. And he's like, crap, I just bought this boat like last week. And we're like, listen, man. I was like, that's a bite mark. You will not be,
Wow.
I would not get rid of this. There's your story. And anyway, so we harpooned him again, and then we put 3 harpoons in him, and then eventually the gator would like swim out into Julington Creek. Then he'd swim back underneath the docks and stuff, and we jump on the docks and chase him and hook him. And so the last time I hooked him, I brought him up. We don't try to rope his whole head. So you see some of the guys like using snares and stuff.
Right.
I don't use that method. I've always used like a rope or a pocket rope. They're just easier to carry around, but we actually try to like get the gator. He's going to open his mouth and try to bite you eventually. I try to rope him in his top bill. So there's something about the shape of their top jaw that's just perfect. Like the ropes never slip off. So I roped him with a dock rope, and the guy pulls back up with the ski boat, and he's like, "What do you do now?" Like, I'm probably 220 pounds. This gator's like 650 pounds. I was like, "Is there a boat ramp nearby?" Or like, "Yeah, there's one like 4 houses down." All right, cool. We jumped back on the boat, cleat him off to the back of the ski boat. We towed him around to the dock or to the boat ramp and pulled him up. He was still alive at the time. I actually pulled him up, and then we bang sticked him, and so we could get him in the truck. And stuff,
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's awesome.
But he was 12'8", 650 pounds. But I've only 3,000 alligators. I've only really caught like 4 or 5 over 12. So
wow,
those animals it takes them that long to get that big.
How old are they when they're 12?
Probably 50 plus.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Hey, I was interested because I live on Moultrie Creek, and my neighbor 2 houses down's got a little dock, and sometimes I'll walk down there. I've seen some big gators down
Oh
there,
yeah.
but I see a lot of babies, right?
Oh yeah.
And yesterday I asked you how many eggs they lay, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Eggs do they lay?
40 to 50. So
40 to 50 eggs, one gator.
yeah. So the female gators only get to be about 9 feet long. The bull gators can get to be like 13 feet realistically. I mean, there's like some state records where they've got to be 14 and stuff. But so if you get like a big female, there's probably a big female in your area, probably like an 8-footer that is nesting.
Yeah.
And they only nest like every 3 or 4 years.
I've seen her a couple times. Yeah, she's
a big girl, you know. So she's
big.
probably the females are super reclusive. So we keep we have to like measure and sex the gators when we catch them and stuff, and then I have to both on the trapper side and on the farm side. I have to keep track of what they are, and but it's funny, we only catch maybe 30% female gators.
Really?
Yeah, and we catch them like in April when they're breeding. So these females are from what I've seen, they're super reclusive. So they go and find themselves like we look at the St. John's River as like this piece of water, but if you look right outside of the St. John's River, there's like thousands of these little tiny creeks and little gator holes and little swamps. So this gator might be living like up in a little gator hole, maybe only 30 or 40 yards off the river. And so she'll live there. And then when she's ready to mate, like in April, if we think they only mate like every 3 or 4 years. And there's no such thing as an alligator expert from what I've experienced, because we do get eggs out on the farm. We do get some nests, but we're not allowed to keep them. So we sell them to a farm in Stark that does the incubating and does that, and sells to the fashion industry. But you ask them like, well, they have a farm that has some breeding age females on it. I'm like, how often do they have eggs? They're like, we don't know. I'm like, how do you not know? You're in a farm. You've been doing this like 40 years, and but they think like every 3 or 4 years. So you see a mom with babies, and then she'll be with 9-inch babies, and then the next year she'll be with like 1.5-foot babies, and then and then she doesn't have babies, and then the next year she has another.
Oh, so they don't breed every year.
They don't breed every year.
Yeah, interesting.
And those females, they come out into these open bodies of water in April, and those bull gators come out, and they actually are courting them, and that's why they're bellowing and all that stuff. So we catch a lot of gators in April. We catch a lot of gators in September and October, because so the gators are they're a pretty complicated animal. They have these courtships and stuff. So while they, that female may move out into this body of water and stuff, and this bull gator may go and hang out with her in April, the courtship might start like now. So these big bull gators and stuff, I don't know how they figured out, but they'll figure out that this female is gonna breed the next April. So this time of the year, we'll get these crazy reports of like, yeah, I saw this massive 10 or 11-foot gator chasing this 7-foot gator down the river, or something like that. And what it is that female gator, she's gonna go find her a spot or go back to her spot. So she's gonna go up this little creek and stuff, and go up or up into this little gator hole and stuff, and she's gonna spend the winter up there. And then a bull gator, he'll go up there with her, and he'll kind of hang out with her all winter long and stuff. And then the next April, he's got a sow. They call it sow gators. So he's already got a sow gator for the year. So he's already set up.
Awesome.
But they don't just like get together and breed. They'll actually hang out together. And this is one of the tricks that I know a lot of trappers do this. I've done this myself. They get called about a gator, and we get there, and there's a 7-footer and a 9-footer. You grab the boyfriend. If you come back in a week, she'll have a new boyfriend.
Oh.
So you grab another 9-footer.
Oh.
Come back. So and they breed in the same spots. That's kind of the weird thing. Like there's spots in Ponte Vedra, like there's always gators breeding in those spots.
Interesting.
And they're always nesting in certain spots. And even like they're always hanging out in certain spots. Like some of these, especially in Nocatee, there's some of these communities that have 50 or 60 ponds. We catch the gators out of the same 6 or 8 ponds.
They keep going back to the same place.
Yeah. Well, the gator, he's gone. He's went to the farm or got killed or whatever. But it must be a structure thing, kind of like a grouper likes a certain kind of rock, or snapper likes this kind of rock. It must be something about that pond, the way the sun sits every day, or the water quality. But we catch them in the same ponds and almost in the same spots all the time.
That's awesome. So let's stop talking about gators for a minute. So when we were walking, or we were going around your property yesterday, you began to talk to me less about gators and more about the property. And then we got into this story about when you got the property,
Sure.
you had this homeless encampment.
Sure.
that was there. And you had mentioned your passion, right, is teaching. Your passion is taking people out guiding, right, showing them something or giving them experience they never had before. That was obvious to me through our conversation that that's where you really enjoy things, and where you really your passion really is. And so tell everybody about that, the whole story with the homeless folks, and what you've done. I mean, I thought it was really cool.
Uh, sure. So I think the project manager side of me loves chaos, and so like my mother got hit by Hurricane Michael and a few years ago, and I go over there and like day 3 or whatever, and I go and the whole place is torn up, like everyone else is crying and freaked out and stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the best playground ever, and it was kind of my experience when I bought the property, when I bought it, my wife and I just got married, and so that's about one thing, hey honey, I think I'm gonna go buy this 20 acres of property and check it out. It's got like 8 homeless camps on it, and you can't really build a house on it, and it's really not, it's dirt cheap because it's literally Florida swampland. Uh, but I was like, and I'm gonna build this alligator hunting reserve. It's gonna take a few hundred thousand. It's gonna take $100,000 or whatever. So when I first bought it, you couldn't walk down that. It's got a 500 foot long road going in there. You can only get about a third of the way down the road, and then it's just like brambles and briars and all this other stuff. The road's all torn up. People have dumped trash down there, and then on the eastern side of it's a moat. So people have been in there like down the people that dug the pond. They were robbing dirt out of that area. So the whole area is like kind of pockmarked because these people that own these little mom and pop construction companies, over time they were just robbing dirt.
Oh
If you
wow.
pull back the topsoil, like the top um, foot of dirt, which is the muck, under that it's like beautiful, perfect sand. So they were in there. So there's a moat on the eastern side of this 20 acres, and then so I walk through the little moat, and then my wife and I would go in there. Well, I go in there first by myself. The first thing I see is like this old homeless guy's dilapidated tent. It's an abandoned camp, and it looks like it's straight out of Blair Witch 2, and, and I'm walking around, and I don't know anything about like what's back there. And I talked to the guy that did the environmental survey on it, and he's like, and he kind of like gives me this like kind of scares me, or not, gives me this like horror story, like, oh my god, there's all kind of stuff going back there, and there's a guy with a power, like a full-on power grid back there, and all this other stuff. So I'm bumping around, and I just see a lot of homeless trash, and then but I didn't see any homeless people. So I buy the property, and about we start clearing it up, and everything's got to be done by hand. You're not allowed to bring heavy machinery and that kind of stuff into wetlands. So we're clearing it all by hand. I'm using a
Oh,
side
what
by
a job.
side and all that stuff. And so I'm in there, and then but I'm like, oh, I'm trying to leverage technology. So I bought one of those tow behind like bush hogs. I was like, I had an Argo in there at the time, which is like the 8-wheel thing that comes out of Canada,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
amphibious vehicle. So I have this Argo, and I'm in there, and like we're starting to clean up the trash and stuff, and um, eventually everything that came into that property, all the boards for the boardwalk, all the fence for the fencing. There's 2,300 feet of fencing in there. All the boards for the shooting platforms, for the footbridges, all that stuff had to be brought in on a side by side. Well, all the trash from the homeless people had to be taken out on a side by side. What we would do is we'd stage this stuff, and then I'd go rent a Penske truck for a week or whatever, and then we'd load it up and take it out there. But in total, off of just that 20 acres, I removed 7 Penske trucks of trash. So anyway, fast forward, been in there about a month. We started cleaning up stuff, and one of my Navy buddies, we kind of joke with him a lot. His wife definitely wears the pants in the family, and so we always, every time he comes hunting with us or fishing with us, we always say he has to get his kitchen pass. He said, "Hey man, I got my kitchen pass tomorrow. Can I come down there and hang out with you?" I said, "Sure, man." So I had some wood chippers out there at the time because we were trying to like chip all the. Mostly it's just underbrush out there, It's like little tiny stuff. And so I said, "Hey man, I need help moving this bush hog." So go buy the bush hog from Northern Tool, get it back. This thing weighs 400 pounds. We put it on the back of this Argo, strap it down, and I'm going through that moat, and the Argo's floating with this 400-pound bush hog, and I'm like, I'm getting ready to jump off if this thing flips over and blah blah blah. So anyway, we get it across, get the things all set up, fire it up, and put on my super loud, so put on my headphones, and I'm like, oh, I can just drive through the woods, with this thing, and it'll tear out. And that's this underbrush. So I'm driving this thing along, and so John, when he gets to help me with the bush hog, he goes, "Hey man, what you got anything else?" I said, "Hey man, if you want to put some stuff in the wood chipper." So he's over there like running the wood chipper, and I'm driving through the woods, and I hear, "Hey, hey!" So I turn around, and there's like the Unabomber, like right behind me, right? This old guy, like with some beard and stuff, and he's like, "Hey, hey, do you have Adam Birch's phone number?" I was like, no, but I said, I probably could get it for you. And he goes, well, my name's Glenn, and I live over here, and I know he's bought the property, and I was going to do some kind of like homestead or something, but I know he bought the property, and I don't want to get trespassed, so if he'll just give me a week or two, I'm going to move off the property, and blah, blah, blah. I said, well, Glenn, I said, I said, I'm Adam Birch, and I said, listen, I said, you can stay. I said, eventually you're going to have to move off the property. I said, but, we're cleaning it up, and I said, and we'll help you move, and blah, blah, blah. So this old guy, come to find out, he'd been in the Merchant Marine, and he was down in Honduras. He had a Honduran girlfriend or whatever, and he was up on the top of the house adjusting a television antenna. Had some weird accident, fell off, broke his hip, had to have some kind of device put in his hip, and it kind of knocked him out from ever being a merchant mariner again. And he ended up spending 10 years out there in the woods. There off of Homeless Boulevard, yeah. So he was very handy with small engine repair and stuff like that. So we hired him, and he worked around the camp and stuff. And he was kind of out of sight, out of mind unless you needed him. But when we were burning piles out there and stuff, I'd hire him to kind of keep an eye on the fire after it died down at night and stuff. And
wow,
yeah.
So,
but as we got further into there was 8 homeless camps out there. There was 3 kind of in the interior, and then there was 5 of them out toward that Silver Creek retirement home, which my property borders them. And one of those over there you could see from space. It was massive. But a girl got killed over there in 2019, and kind of the combination of she was like she voluntarily was over there in the homeless camp, and they're not sure if she should die. Ultimately, they kind of like just closed the case, but
right.
Supposedly her and another homeless girl were fighting over something, and anyway, so she was 41 years old, so she ended up dying in one of the homeless camps. And after that, St. John's Sheriff's Department kind of made that camp their priority and stuff, and was over there investigating her potential murder. So when I got over there cleaning up, there's like crime scene tape everywhere because they made the entire homeless camp a crime scene back in 2019. But because of that and all of the gentrification that's happening around there, there's a Planet Fitness, a Dunkin' Donuts, a Boiling Groover, that retirement home, a new VA clinic, all that stuff's kind of in that area now. So a lot of the homeless people. So when I got the property, the only person I inherited was Glenn, and the occasional person that kind of camped outside of our property off of 207.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that you let Glenn stay there and leveraged him to get some help and somebody that knew the land, right? He's living on it for 10 years. Yeah. That's crazy. So one more time, how do people get in touch with you if they want to go hunting?
Sure, they can look at www.bullgatorbayou.com, or they can call me at 904-607-6399. Happy to talk to them about gator hunting. It's a kind of a big unknown, so people always have a lot of questions.
Sure,
and, It's not the easiest thing to explain on a website,
Well, clearly you can tell some stories.
Evidently. So,
so yeah, we really enjoyed having you on the show today, and you're welcome back anytime.
Great.
And we'll definitely do that. I know there's a lot more to talk about. We didn't even talk about the bees. We didn't even talk about some of the cool things you're doing, axe throwing, and all the things that are there and available. Your fishing guide service. There's so much you're doing in the marine space. You are right here, perfect in Northeast Florida for so many people. Whether you're visiting or whether you're coming here, you're a local, right? Everyone needs to know Adam Birch, the Bull Gator, the Bull Gator. If you don't know Adam Birch, you better get to know Adam Birch for sure. So thanks again, Adam. We really appreciate it, and we will see you again soon, I'm sure.
Thank you.